Hey everybody, welcome to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund's WonderCon at Home presentation. Community is our superpower. I'm Charles Brownstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, and I'm really excited to be talking to all of you at home today. I'd like to take a minute to ask my team members to also introduce themselves, and then we will go into telling you about the work that we're doing to support community during the crisis.
My name
All right,
is, oh,
go for it, Sienna.
my name is Siena Fallon. I'm the Community Development Manager, former comic book retailer, just joined the fund about a month and a half ago and really excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm Karen Evans, and I have a background as a teacher and an admin, so it's a good fit to be education coordinator with CBLDF. In addition to my work here, I also produce a comic strip called Luann with my dad, so I've got a creator edge as well.
Very cool. This is the moment where if we were all in the auditorium at WonderCon Anaheim, I would say that let's all put our hands together to thank the volunteers that make Comic-Con possible. And that's even more valuable right now that WonderCon's happening at home, because there are people that are working tirelessly to ensure that we get to have this experience and communicate with each other and be part of a community. So everybody at home, please do click like on that and round of applause, and thank you so much to all of the great folks at WonderCon and Comic-Con for making this great event happen. So thank you very much. All right, so we are going to introduce our presentation. Community is our superpower, and one of the things that I think we're all experiencing right now under the isolation that we're experiencing because of the state of the world is that community is more important to us than ever. And being connected with each other through Zoom chats like this, through the phone, through watching movies together and streaming them, and talking to each other, while it's going on, or reading comics together, is that it's those close-knit connections that get us all through these times. And community is what CBLDF is all about. So we're going to be talking about the work that we are doing to support the community in this time of need. Real briefly about the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. We are a nonprofit organization that protects the freedom to read comics. We provide legal aid, education, and advocacy, which we'll be talking about throughout the presentation. Our efforts to promote free expression and fight censorship are essential to protecting the future of comics. And during this present coronavirus crisis, we're providing essential information for comics retailers and creators, as well as valuable education resources to support our community. We're a small team, we've got a big mission, and you make it possible. So over the course of this panel, we're going to be talking about what you can do to make a difference, and we're going to be showing you how your support is making our programming possible. Today we're going to be talking about 3 threads of CBLDF's program: our education work, which is supporting online learners and remote learners in using comics and graphic novels in this period. We're going to be talking about our aid for retailers and creators, and we're going to be talking about our core work protecting the First Amendment rights of our field. So to start us off, I would like to ask Karen to walk us through some of the exciting education programming that we have happening.
Perfect. So CBLDF is all about supporting the freedom to read, write, and create comics. And that applies whether we're coming together in person or we're coming together virtually. So we have taken some of the programs we already have running that are quite popular and expanded to make those accessible to everyone, even if we're working remotely and teaching remotely right now. Next slide, please. This is a very exciting announcement. We're super pleased to announce the League of Graphic Novel Educators. This is the perfect time to launch something like this because we're all really eager to find resources, and a ton of information is coming out to us. But it's kind of hard to filter through sometimes. It can be a little bit overwhelming. I empathize with all my educator friends out there who are transitioning to online teaching and trying to make sense of it all. There's a lot of resources, where to start, how to do something, have it ready to go, save some time. So the League has resources for you. It's a community of folks coming together to grow the readership and build confidence in teaching with graphic novels. This is perfect whether you are already familiar with graphic novels or you're new to it. It's something that you'd like to explore using with your students. It's appropriate for teachers or librarians, parents, community leaders. It may be a classroom activity, it may be a club, it may be an individual student that you're working with. So there's a lot going on with our League of Graphic Novel Educators. There's some cool benefits. We have teaching guides. We have an exclusive book club I'm very excited about. We meet every other month. We select a text to read together, and then we meet live and do a live conversation so that we can dive into how do we use this text with young people. We also have an ongoing series of education-related webinars covering a range of topics that are useful to tackling issues in graphic novels, through graphic novels, exploring literacy, how do you build a good collection of reading resources. We have access to articles and recommendations through our website. And then we have some exclusive things, including some creator content that we're working directly with folks that you would be reading their graphic novel, and now you can use some tools from them in your classroom. All of this is designed to be standards-based and ready to go. So it's kind of a plug and play system, and then a range of things you can build off to customize it or go in more depth. So the goal is to make it easy for you and still give you a lot of range for customization. We have some great resources beyond just the work the League is focused on. So we do have a series that's been running for years about using graphic novels in education. We've covered nearly 40 graphic novels. There are more added on a regular basis. So this is in-depth lesson plans that are highly flexible for a range of teaching modalities and classroom settings on a lot of commonly used, popular, appealing, really relevant classroom-based graphic novels. In addition, we have discussion guides that are appropriate for teachers, librarians, parents, looking at some of the texts that have been challenged or even banned. So whether you are defending a text and looking for resources and understanding what you can do to help defend the use of a text, or you're interested to just look at that issue perhaps with your students, there's a lot of great conversation around First Amendment issues that you can access through the resources in these discussion guides. Beyond graphic novels, we have several other resources out there. A lot of people are excited about comics, comic books, graphic novels, manga, or maybe their kids are into it and they don't know what to do with it. Maybe you're a classroom teacher and you have parents asking questions. You're a librarian trying to promote a program at your library or in your community. Two of our resources, my cat's tail says hi. The obligatory cat moment. We have two great resources. These booklets both address kind of an introduction to comics and the benefit of using comics in learning, including recommendations and resources to get you started. So those are a nice way to open those conversations. In addition to the League's book club, we really encourage book clubs in general. That's an awesome tool for students. It's a neat way to let them find some unity in what they're reading. So we already had excellent handbooks out there for comic book clubs or manga book clubs. We want to let you know that those have been updated to include resources for remote clubs. So whether you have an existing club and you're trying to figure out how to make that appropriately switch over to a remote setting, or you're thinking this could be a good program to incorporate into your classroom or with youth in your life to give them a chance to come together and talk about some great literature, there's tools here for you in those handbooks, and those are free to download. Speaking of free, we realize that things are tight for everybody right now. So a lot of our resources are always available for free. We've also added some opportunities to pay what you feel is appropriate. And one I really want to highlight is this text, She Changed Comics. This is a fantastic and powerful text highlighting the history of women who have changed free expression in comics. It gives a great history and a lot of good talking points and includes teaching resources and student worksheets, so you can incorporate this as a power tool with your students. And go check it out now because it is pay what you want, so you can access really good resources in a comfort zone from a paying perspective. Lastly, we have some fun stuff going on too, just general engagement components with creativity tools, comic templates, coloring activities, challenges that we've put out. So do stop by and visit to check out all the things going on. We know that there's a lot out on the internet to help you right now, but we want you to be aware of the resources that we have, and we're trying to make it as easy and accessible so that you can incorporate things even remotely.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karen. And so please do check out cbldf.org, where we have our daily blog, and also follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, where you can get all of the latest of our education resources. And going into every weekend, we tend to have new activities that you can be using at home and sharing with folks around the neighborhood. So one of the nice things that we see around in our neighborhoods are people put out, coloring sheets for the neighborhood kids to use. There's a lot of really cool things that we can all do interactively to encourage community and learning and reading with comics. So thank you so much, Karen, for highlighting those programs. Next up, we're going to be talking about the industry support programs that Comic Book Legal Defense Fund has been doing on behalf of the comics businesses, including retailers, creators, and small publishers. I'll start briefly by talking about the crisis resources that CBLDF has created to spring into action and aid our community in making sense of all of the things that are flying at everybody so quickly. So if you go to cbldf.org/coronavirus, you'll see that we've put together a number of tools that help sort out a lot of the legalese and jargon and put in plain English and plain directories of links and resources to help you out. So we've got a comprehensive state-by-state clearinghouse of financial aid, training tools, and other information resource, but one for retailers, one for creators and freelancers. We have a concise overview of government financial aid, explaining things like the pandemic unemployment insurance benefits, how to get payroll protection loans, how to get loans and grants on both the local and national levels, as well as how-to training resources, including a webinar about how to apply for SBA loans. And as of this recording today, we've learned that the PPP loans are exhausted, but the EIDL loans are still available. If you understand what those letters stand for, you have our sympathies, and you also have our support in figuring out how you can apply through these tools. So please do check out cbldf.org/coronavirus. We continue to add resources on an ongoing basis. We'll continue to add trainings. We're all going to get through this together, and we are your advocate in helping to understand how to sort out these different messy and confusing things in this messy and confusing time. In other areas that we're doing a lot of support for our community is creating tools and training that is really retailer specific. And we couldn't be happier than we are to have Siena on our team, who themselves comes from retail and the convention world. So I'm going to ask Siena to take it over and talk about some of the really great retailer tools that you're stewarding for us.
Awesome. Thanks for the handoff, Charles. Yeah, so retailers, we're in huge support of retailers. They're a big part of the comic book community. They're the ones who make sure that stories get into the hands of those who need them. So it's obviously a tough time for everyone, especially local comic shops, and we want to do everything we can to provide support for them in this time. One of the things we've done is we've created the CBLDF directory of our retail members. It has a list of members state by state, so you can hop to your state and see what stores are close by. And we've also included information on what they're doing to get comics in your hands in a safe manner. So some stores are offering curbside pickup, others are offering local delivery, some are doing mail order shipping. There's a lot of innovative ways that comic shops are, figuring out ways to get you your comics. We're also doing retailer spotlights every week, where we highlight local comic shops who have come up with a creative way to sell comics. Some stores have turned to Facebook Live. to sell comics on social media. Other stores are creating ways to build websites that list their inventory that make it easy for people to find the stories they're looking for. There's been a lot of creativity and innovation in the comic book retail area, and it's been really exciting to watch, and we're really proud to highlight all the efforts that retailers are taking to get people the stories they need, especially with all this downtime that people have. What better time to read a comic book and read a new story? We are also working with retailers themselves to build out our training webinars. So we talk to industry members that have experience in, have certain expertise and can offer help to retailers. So our first retailer training webinar that we've done in this time is the remote retailing webinar, where we spoke with Jen King from a shop in Texas, Morgan, the retailer rep for Boom Publishings, and Adam Freeman, who runs a direct marketing firm that specially deals with comic shops. And we kind of just talked about what ways comic shops can continue serving their community in a remote fashion. We also, as mentioned earlier, had a webinar on government relief loans, so retailers can have some information on how to deal with applying for government loans. And we have an upcoming one this Friday. Though by the time you're watching this, I'm sure it'll already be on our YouTube channel, going over best practices for retailers in using social media. So much of connecting with customers nowadays is going through social media, as stores are closed physically. So we'll be talking with some retailers who have expertise in that area and going over best practices on how to use social media to connect with your customer. We also at CBLDF want to highlight the voices of retailers themselves and let them share their backgrounds. So we've been working with retailers to write training articles for other retailers. So we spoke to Brett Parks from Sailfish Comics in North Carolina, who provided an article on getting comics online and selling them on eBay. And we also spoke to Django from a comics place in Washington State. He provided a great training article on how to create a web store for your comic shop. This is actually based off of our a book that we helped produce, Selling Comics, which has articles from tons of retailers across the industry, providing training articles on what they know best. And that is available on our website if you're interested in that. All of these resources are available on cbldf.org. We actually have a tab specifically for retailer resources where you can find everything I've talked about. And we'll continue adding whatever we can to help retailers get through this tough time.
Thanks so much, Siena. And the retail community is really at the heartbeat of the comics field. And so we encourage anybody watching this to please make an effort to get your comics from your local comic book store. And if your store isn't aware of these resources, please do send them our way. Community is our superpower, and the retail shop is our bat cave. So we've got to make sure that we all support them. Now I'm going to talk about the core mission of Comic Book Legal Defense Fund of fighting censorship. And just because they're in the middle of a pandemic, censorship has not slowed down. And the largest area of censorship continues to be this area that we're calling identity censorship. And this is just endemic around the country for the last couple of years. And the fund has been at the forefront of standing up to these sorts of bans. Typically, we're seeing LGBTQ+ creators, books, and events being targeted. And this will manifest in book bans. This will manifest in challenges to specific events like drag queen story time or specific author events. And it's really a travesty, because ultimately what's happening is people are being told that they're not allowed to be who they are, and that is abhorrent. It's un-American, and we fight it with every fiber of our being. And so I'm going to get into some of the specific cases that we've been working on, and then talk about how you can help out. The current battles in the identity censorship space are really focused on libraries. And this year we've seen bills in Missouri and Tennessee that are attempting to propose legislation that would create parental library review boards. These would be boards of untrained citizens that would be put into place to determine whether books are age appropriate, and to remove them if they find that these books have what in their judgment is sexual material, but not any judgment that is based in law. So somebody with an axe to grind may take a book like Fun Home or Drama by Raina Telgemeier, Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, both books that are commonly regarded as being of very high merit for their respective audiences, and say, we find these to be sexually inappropriate, and libraries that are carrying them would be vulnerable to losing their funding, or the librarians that are providing these books would be vulnerable to criminal charges for lending these books within the community. So these laws have been proposed in the current legislative session. They are currently tabled partially through the process of the opposition that groups like the Fund and the Office of Intellectual Freedom at ALA have brought, but because the legislative calendar has been shifted because of the crisis, we may be seeing these recur. So we continue to stand watch on these bills, and hope to be able to say that they've been defeated in this session. But this is a trend. This is something that we're seeing happen more frequently, groups being empowered to speak up against kinds of content that they morally disagree with, and it's creating serious consequences for audiences and librarians everywhere. So the fund continues to be really active in fighting these laws before they become laws, and thankfully none of them have actually passed yet. But be aware, and if this kind of thing is happening in your community, let us know that it's happening, so that we can fight back, and that we can provide you with some tools so that you can fight back. In addition to the library censorship bills that we're seeing happening, we continue to see just pervasive challenges to books related to LGBTQ plus audiences. In the past year, we fought challenges to Fun Home, Drama, Pride, Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag, Lily and Duncan, I Am Jazz, George, and My Brother's Husband. And thankfully, because of our intervention and the intervention of our colleagues, most of these books remain available to their intended audiences. The support we provide will range from behind-the-scenes counseling, where we will work with the affected librarian or teacher and connect them with the resources they need to fight the challenge. We will provide letters of public support where that's appropriate. Some of this stuff happens behind the scenes, some of this stuff happens in public. And we will also provide a lot of case study and case file resources, so that librarians elsewhere can benefit from learning how a challenge in a particular locality was handled. And I will say that this year to date, we've already seen more books start to come under fire. Drama we just kept in library earlier this year. So this stuff does continue to happen, despite all being drawn together, by the crisis. So we do need to be vigilant, because there's really two very important voices that don't get talked about enough when you're talking about banned and challenged content. First are the professional educator, whose judgment is being called into question because of their decision to serve their community with valuable material. And then the second is the audience themselves. And how terrible must it be to be a a kid, a teenager, just somebody in the community that identifies with characters in a book, and you're being told there's something wrong with you because somebody disagrees with something in the book. That's unacceptable. And we continue to fight back and continue to ask for your help in raising understanding and awareness about these battles, because they're really important. The other trend that we're seeing in the identity censorship space are author and event bans. Last summer, we were really active in a battle in Leander, Texas, which is adjacent to Austin, involving a disturbing ban of a talk with the author Lila Sturges. And this came after a challenge that the library faced in June during Pride Month to having a drag queen story hour. And following that challenge, they decided on a discriminatory basis that they were going to shut down any kind of public event related to LGBTQ plus material. And so this event with Lila that had been planned for quite some time, weeks and weeks, to promote the book Lumberjanes, The Infernal Compass, was canceled mere hours before it was supposed to happen. And it was canceled on a discriminatory basis, merely because Lila happens to be transgender. And so the fund led a national protest of this blatant act of discriminatory censorship. And unfortunately, the city doubled down on their censorship. And instead of addressing this particular situation, which violated all of the policies that the library had, they decided that they were just going to ban the community use of the public library meeting rooms full stop in order to cancel this event and any others like it. And fight though we did, unfortunately, this was not able to be reversed. It's a really important and somewhat demoralizing reminder of the fact that your voice in your local community matters, and getting your local community together to stand up for the rights of everybody is really important. We continue to raise awareness of fights like this, and a fight like this really shows how bigotry can affect communities very broadly. So not a win, and unfortunately they can't all be, but very instructive about the kinds of stakes that we're all facing in this space. In happier news, we've been able to help restore several displays related to Pride and LGBTQI books in the Banned Books Week space. The display that you see below Lila is from a Banned Books Week display in Vermont last year that was protested because of the presence of the graphic novel My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, which is a mainstream manga graphic novel. So this is a troubling trend. This is a broad trend, and it's one that we are fighting by getting involved on the ground and providing resources that many times lead to books being retained and events being retained, but also letting you know in events like this, hey, this is happening in your community. Keep your eyes open, stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, and let's speak up for each other's voices and be the community that is upholding each other's voices, because no human being should be banned, and no human being should feel that they're lesser than because they identify with a person in a story. It's just flat out wrong. Beyond the identity censorship space, we continue to do a lot of work in broader First Amendment areas. So far this year, we have taken up the case of a group of artists who had put together a graphic novel in memoriam of one of their friends, another graphic novelist. I'm not at liberty to disclose all of the details because it's still moving through the courts, but basically this is a copyright battle where the work that these creators did is now at risk of being altered, confiscated, or suppressed in a complex copyright battle. We have provided a lawyer and the funds to help protect this group of artists and their rights. So that is pending at the moment, and we will be sharing more detailed information with you when we are at liberty to share it. But unfortunately, right now, there's aspects of confidentiality that we have to adhere to, but your donations are helping us help this group of artists defend their copyright and their First Amendment rights to make their work. We provided support to defend against attempts to ban drama by Raina Telgemeier in Wyoming and the manga Seven Deadly Sins in Texas. We won both of those fights. We are monitoring, opposing, and advising about a lot of unconstitutional legislation, and this term we saw some very dangerous censorship laws proposed in Utah and Iowa pertaining to the right to disseminate material on the internet. Utah in particular is very troubling because they wanted to create a disclaimer that all websites or all stores would have to place on content that they deem to be harmful to minors material with a law that is with language is very broad, so that if you're a retailer selling, say, Saga or Sandman or Watchmen or other mainstream pieces of comics content that contain mere nudity, you would have to put a giant disclaimer on your website or on the book itself saying that there are, here are the various dangers of pornography as determined by Utah's legislature. It's a compelled speech standard, which itself is unconstitutional on its face. But in addition to that, it's there's a lot of troubling precedents for legitimate speech that are at play here. So we continue to monitor and oppose these laws when they occur. In the prior calendar year, CBLDF provided support in 14 cases supporting retailers, readers, and creators whose rights were at risk. And thanks in part to our intervention, none of these cases went to court. And that's really one of the core things when you're supporting Comic Book Legal Defense Fund is our lawyers, who are coming from two of the best firms in the country, Kirkland and Ellis and Davis Wright Tremaine. Our lawyers are on call at a moment's notice to spring into action and work on these cases before they have to go to a courtroom, which is why a lot of what I talk about here is pretty vague, because we're able to kill things before they become matters of public record. We're able to kill things while we're able to go, okay, this goes away and it ends up being quiet. Because we have really good legal talent. And so thank you for supporting our work. Thank you for supporting our experts. Thank you for helping us support our community to ensure that they get to use their full range of First Amendment rights to create the broad range of content that makes comics vibrant. And if you have a First Amendment emergency, if you're a librarian that is being challenged because you're offering a book to your community, if you're a creator that gets a cease and desist letter because some corporation disagrees with a parody that you made, if you are a teacher that is facing a disciplinary action for offering content in your classroom, make CBLDF your first call. You can reach us at 888-88-CBLDF or info@cbldf.org, and we will provide the resources to help you get through the crisis. You don't need to go through it alone. We get through these things together, and community is what makes us strong. So thank you for supporting our work there. And you can support all of our work broadly by going to cbldf.org, where you can join and become a member. Membership starts at $30 donation per year, and we have other items like signed books, merchandise, and a whole lot more. You can also get access to every link that we talked about in this presentation, and also get this slideshow for yourself if you go to cbldf.org/WonderCon. However you support, it makes a big difference. So we implore you to please go to cbldf.org. Please become a member if you can afford it. If you can't become a member, please donate what you can. If you can't donate at this time, please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and share the stories that resonate with you. You can also sign up for our weekly email newsletter, which includes all of our latest tools, and you get it in your inbox every Friday. So please go to cbldf.org/WonderCon and support our important work. And in closing today, I'd like to say that freedom of expression is more important than ever. And indeed, as we're all in our homes and dealing with quarantine and the stresses of quarantine, it's probably art that's getting us through. It's probably stories that are getting us through. And stories come from the First Amendment. Stories come from freedom of expression. And so in these dark times, freedom of expression really permits us to be the light that illuminates the path ahead. And your voice, you watching this right now, your voice matters in this. Your voice is the one that gets to say, I can choose to wallow in the darkness, or I can choose to illuminate a hopeful path ahead. And you do that because you have the right to free expression. Freedom of expression illuminates truth. It uncovers injustice. It lifts up marginalized voices. It creates connection, empathy, and understanding amongst communities. Freedom of expression helps us fight back against things like identity censorship, where people are being told that you don't have the right to express yourself in the way that I do. Well, that's just wrong. Freedom of expression says, no, we all have the right. You can't ban a person. We all have the right to speak our piece. Freedom of expression is not an abstract value. It's a spark that inspires. It is the soul of democracy. Freedom of expression imagines with specificity what a better world looks like. And has there ever been a time where imagining what the world can look like tomorrow is more important than this time right now? Freedom of expression is the freedom to be yourself. Who do you want to be? The comics community has a superpower. Together, we are the inspirational beacon of free expression that can positively define the decade ahead. We're in a dark time, no question about it. It's really challenging, and sometimes it's just going to be that one email that sets us off and goes, I can't deal with it anymore. But with the right story, the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell each other, the stories that we create in this medium, the stories that we share in our book clubs, the stories that we sell in our stores, the right story will illuminate a path forward. So in this time, please use your right to free expression to speak up about the positive values of story, the positive values of community, the positive values of coming together. Come together with us at Comic Book Legal Defense Fund by being a member, by joining our League of Graphic Novel Educators, by joining our retailer services, by being part of our team, because together community is our superpower, and together we are going to illuminate a positive path ahead. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Please come visit us at cbldf.org, and we hope to see you at the next WonderCon.